I get shit done, I have fun. It's my time and I'm the one. I'm breaking through.
Hello and welcome. The unusual way a virtual assistant can help you punch out procrastination. You'll want to hang out and learn from my guest today. I'm really quite excited about it. But before we do that, so if you ever had a question about business, maybe it's around time, team, money, or next steps for you've grown your business or you want to retire from your business. Well, guess what? I'm a business coach, one of a couple of hundred from around the globe with Focal Point. Reach out to us with your question, a complimentary call, no credit card required. And who knows? You might get the question answered. By the way, if I don't know the answer to the question, there is a network of us around the globe, as I mentioned before. So that's our gift for you watching the show now or in the future. So if you're watching it in the future, if you could go #replay and let us know, that would be fantastic. And if you would like to share this out, we'd really appreciate that. I'm excited to learn about this topic today, the unusual way a virtual assistant can help you punch out procrastination. My guest is an expert in that. He's a global entrepreneur. He's got a brilliant sense of humor, and he's a pretty smart guy. He's been advising entrepreneurs on the subjects of productivity and outsourcing to virtual assistants since 2009, and he's coached, consulted, trained thousands of entrepreneurs around the world. He is the founder of Beejel Outsourcing and Productive Hive. Beejel, come on up. It's your time. It's your show. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me on today.
I have to, before we get started, normally if any comments that come in, I leave them to the end, but I can't wait. This guy's so pushy. You'll see who I mean in a minute.
Oh, God. Get him off. Eject him right now.
Yeah, that's right. The last time the three of us were hanging out together was in your kitchen, Jason, in Vegas. That's very true.
It was, and I stayed in Vegas, and you guys just left me all
That's
alone.
Right. I think you were the smart one. Maybe you still are the smart one. Anyway, yeah. So we were in Vegas hanging out as coaches and consultants, and we were at a conference, and we were hanging around and having masterminds, and a whole bunch of great conversations came out of that. And I know you've been in the space of helping people get more shit done, just like my theme song is all about. And that can be accomplished in a variety of different ways. But just like the topic of our show today, you have some unusual ways to help punch out procrastination.
Yeah, I believe I do, and I can save it to the end, or I can share it now. You tell me, Phil.
We're going to get there. We're going to hope that people will hang in here and be as excited about it, learning about it as I is. You're originally not from Vegas, though, are you?
No, I'm from the UK. So I transferred over from the UK to Chicago in 1997. I grew up in dreams of Baywatch and Knight Rider and all these American great shows, and landed square in Chicago in the middle of winter, and it did not look the same as the movies and the TV shows. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
I always wanted to come and live in America. That part of my dream came true, but it took a little bit more longer time to get to the coast, the west coast of the country, where we lived in San Diego for 10 years. And then we actually had some challenges with immigration. My lawyer called me up one day and said, "Hey, you have two choices: become illegal or leave the country." Well, we didn't want to break any laws, so we sold everything, packed 4 bags, 3 laptops, 2 kids, 1 wife, and we left. and turned into a 5-year global adventure, which we treasure for the rest of our lives. The most incredible 5 years. But that's kind of where I cut my teeth, kind of on outsourcing, because I just got started, and that's where I realized that if you start to delegate correctly, you can actually create that lifestyle of being able to travel and still get a lot of stuff done.
You know what's fascinating to me about that story? Well, you don't, because you don't know me that well, but so I'm going to share it with you. And that is that hanging out with people like you, who I see as victors versus victims. So, there's an atrocity that could have been, oh my God, what are we going to do? Let's hide under a rock. I can't, you didn't do that. You and your family turned it into an adventure. And as you said, that was something that you treasure for the rest of your life. That's
Absolutely.
not something you could have. Well, I was going to say it's not something you could plan for, but I suppose you could. But because you had this impact, you and your family took it on and made lemonade out of the lemons that you were thrown. That's what I like that about people like you.
Appreciate it. And I think it kind of segues very nicely, because a lot of times people want to delegate, they want to outsource, but there's a kind of a fear, underlying fear. Like as a family, we always dreamt about traveling around the world, but I don't think we would have really done it had we not kind of almost been forced into making that decision. And I'm not saying we can force anyone into delegate outsourcing, but sometimes when we have enough information about what to outsource, where to outsource, then if there is some resistance to doing it, then you make that step, because no one wants to do the busy work, right? No one wants to be drowning in busy work that they actually don't like doing.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So one of the things I'm a big fan of is a mentor of mine decades ago introduced it to me, and that is that I punched my hand a few times today, but it reminds me it's an anchor. Change happens for one of two reasons. It's either forced upon us to have an impact, or we can choose to do it by making goals and plans and having ideas on how to get there. And it looks like you're frozen, so I hope you come back soon.
No, I think I'm okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just your face is frozen. You're handsome anyway, so there we go. You're back. So you and your family took it upon yourself, saw it as an opportunity, and did something grand with it. So that's fantastic. And I think virtual assistants, VAs, that conversation is foreign to many people. I think they have a perception of it that it's easier to do it myself than it is to pass it out. It's just, I think there's a lot of misnomers around what it is. The other thing that I've heard working with other businesses is the language barrier. Their English isn't very good, and unlike you taking the opportunity to make lemons out of that situation, these people have looked the other way and go, no, they're looking at the worst thing as opposed to the best thing. So I'm looking forward to being enlightened even more so about VAs and how your company helps us as business owners and entrepreneurs get more shit done.
Yeah, let's fire away. What are your coaching questions, Phil?
Well, you got started on your 5-year trek. That's how you got introduced to it. And I know you worked with a company that's done quite well. I can't remember the name of the company, but I did meet the founder of it on a marketing cruise a few years ago. And then I find out later in life, you were his main guy at one time. And
yes, the first company kind of helped grow from 100 to 500 virtual assistants at its peak. I had a great 10-year run with that company, but I also saw there's a few things that could have been done better. Like we could have serviced our clients better, especially because we were really set up to kind of service larger clients. It's kind of where we started that company in a call center, and it was great servicing larger companies. And as we started to service, say, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, professionals, I just felt kind of 10 years into that journey, there's probably a better way, really primarily because of the budgets that a lot of entrepreneurs are, working with when they first start out, or even at various times in their business, that sometimes the agency fees that get added on top of the VA fees kind of make it unfeasible sometimes for a lot of entrepreneurs to really engage a long-term entrepreneur. And there's really the two aspects of outsourcing. I kind of put it into 2 buckets. There's projects, things like getting a website created, getting a book cover designed, getting a logo designed. And I always say that projects cost us money. So when we engage in a project like that, even attending a workshop is a project. Recording this interview today is a project, right? But really, the way to make projects effective, it has to be followed up by some sort of process that allows us to utilize these assets better. So if you're going to create a funnel, say for your business, then you're going to drive traffic to the funnel, that day-to-day activity of driving traffic, or you're out there networking with people. Again, a lot of entrepreneurs enjoy networking but hate the follow-up. So there's a huge issue when it comes to entrepreneurs doing a lot of what I call the morbid parts of their business. And morbid is an acronym of which is the mundane, the overwhelming, the outside skill set, the repetitive, the boring, the I don't want to do that stuff, and the stuff that we dislike doing. And then there's the parts of the business, which are the processes, activities, responsibilities, tasks, and the software we often spend our money on. I bet right now there's people who have got subscriptions to software, or they bought software and never used the software, right? We tend to gravitate to the same tools that we tend to use. All these things, the morbid parts of the business, is what we should and could delegate out to people.
I was turning my face away from the camera because I thought you were talking to me.
I was like, where did Phil go? He just
Yeah, I have a I have a few apps that I bought with good intention that are sitting there, and hardly I give them a mention. That's an interesting point of view. So, are there particular things that, as an entrepreneur, that we would need to want to know or look for in identifying? I guess two things is a company and how to select the right one that's going to work for us.
Yeah, look, if you're a larger company and you're able to, and uptime is very critical, right? So you may want to go to an agency route where they can scale quickly from 5 to 10 to 20 to 30, seats as they call them in the outsourcing industry. And so that's what the typical BPO model, right? However, if you're an entrepreneur or a small business and you're on a tighter budget, you may want to hire directly. So we in my company, we're not an agency, and we're more like a matchmaker. So what we do is we work with our clients to understand what their clients' long-term delegation needs are and immediate delegation needs are. Like what's the first few things, even if it's one thing, Phil, that an entrepreneur can delegate to just start getting either the time back or helping with lead generation or even lead conversion. And then we say, okay, look, over time, let's scale that. Let's take more and more off your plate. Because even if you gave me a list of everything you wanted to delegate today, Phil, and finding the people is not the issue. 90% of the time when delegation or outsourcing doesn't work, I can usually trace it back to the actual client, the entrepreneur, the business owner, the small team, that they are not giving good instructions. The reason they're not giving good instructions, they've attempted to delegate too much, or they're not even sure how to delegate. So we start with small chunks. We start, let's look at, one process at a time. If we can find that one thing a VA can do for you, let's get that started with that. And that makes it easier for the client to manage that and review the work that's getting done and give feedback. And then that leads to a healthy long-term relationship.
Yeah, I like that. It ties into the 1% rule. Small incremental enhancements or changes over a consistent period of time can have huge compounding gains and benefits. So I like that. And as you're talking, I'm going, geez, we should have an interview. just with the show. I do the show because it's fun. I like to get the message out, and it creates content. Okay, there's an awareness factor to this. But there's a missed opportunity with this for me and people to hear your voice and other guests that I have on here. And that missed opportunity is within the platform I have, it creates an audio file of this that sits in a holding tank that could be in a podcast. I mean, the typical podcast. And I don't have the time or desire to do that. So what's going through my head is I probably need to find somebody from a company like yours to do that and say, here they are, clean them up and put them on these places, please.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, you can take this, transcribe the audio into text. Then you as an owner can go through and quickly highlight sentences, paragraphs, phrases that we've exchanged. Turn and then have the VA go into the audio, the video file, cut up this interview into smaller slices that can be used on social media, even TikTok for that matter.
Right.
Reels, that so you can play out the little segments that then come back to the main segment or the main video. So that's just one example.
That's a great example, and it's a real one for me. I've sort of thought about it, but have not made it a high priority to get it done because there's other things that to me are more significant. However, having said that, that would be very valuable for me and my guests. And as we're moving forward, I've got some things planned for the immediate future where this, what we're talking about, could become even more important for my guests and audiences. So, because there's a lot of brilliant people out there, and that's one of the reasons why I do this. I get to meet them, right? I get to have a conversation with them. And one of the things, if there is benefits that came out of the people we had in 2020, was needing to do and find ways to still show up, be present, and serve people. And that afforded me the opportunity to find a way. I didn't even know about this platform in 2019. Apparently been around for a little while ahead of that, but I didn't know about it. And if it wasn't for what happened in 2020, I wouldn't have been looking so seriously and found different ways to have that. So just like your trek around the world with your family, we were kind of thrown into things and we took charge of it and made something a little bit nicer out of it, and the experiences and lessons that I've been able to get from other people. And it's just fascinating. Just by hearing that little nugget, what you shared today, that's such a tiny little piece, but it could be like over time compounded to be, who knows? You throw the pebble in the pond, and where does the ripple take us? Who knows? You have a fascination, not just because it's your name, but you have a beehive behind your head in my shot of your page up here on LinkedIn. I'm going to just bring that up so people can see what I'm looking at. And I'm just going to bring that up right now. There it is right there. So if you look carefully, ladies and gentlemen, in behind his picture on the one with the circle is the beehive. Tell us more about that.
Well, it all started with this book here. So right before my 50th birthday, I somehow came across this book. At the time, I was doing operational level consulting, and I was kind of looking at different management books, and this somehow popped up. I don't know if it was on Amazon or wherever. It just randomly popped up. And prior to that, there's no color yellow. There's no association bees apart from the first three letters of my name. So I picked up this book, and it really talked about how to organize your organization or company around the concept of beehives and bee behavior, and how every bee in the hive has a very specific purpose. They fulfill their personal obligation, their personal duty. So I call it the bees have their purpose. They also serve their hive, their business, their family, their community. That's the hive level. But bees also serve humanity. So I kind of came up with this phrase, well, we entrepreneurs need to be a little bit more bee-like. We serve our purpose, we serve our community, and we get to serve humanity. So that's where the first level of association can be bees. But bees are also symbolic of productivity. If you Google bees and what bees mean from a symbolic or spiritual level, they symbolize productivity, and the honey is the nectar, it's the fruit, it's the result of their work, the gold. So as entrepreneurs, we look forward to the gold, creating that gold in our business. However, we don't necessarily need to be the busy bees. We need to be more like bee keepers that are tending to the hives and let the busy bees, let the team members do their work, get the work done on a day-to-day basis. Also, bees, they wake up in the morning, they just get on and they do it. They don't whine, they don't grime. If there's drama, they just deal with it and get back to their work. So a lot of times entrepreneurs, you mentioned procrastination. So procrastination, we've got overwhelm, we've got distractions. Well, we just need to study maybe a little bit more of nature to realize that we make things way more complicated than we need to as entrepreneurs. So there's a lot of symbolic meaning, multi layers of symbolic meaning around bees, why the bee represents as part of our logo, part of our brand, but also the color. Yellow is a color that represents productivity, and gold, which is the result of the work we do.
That's a brilliant story. I like the connection to the bees. There's another thing that bees do that if you were to look at them, experts say that they shouldn't be able to fly. The aerodynamics, the size of their anatomy, the little wings that they have, yet they're some of the hardest working species, most productive species, and highly high value species that help us as human beings have a better existence. Without them, we'd be in trouble with some of our food sources.
Absolutely. And there's so many layers of that conversation. It's almost like a 3 hour seminar on bees and productivity and management that we can go into.
I have clients from another industry in the oil and gas exploration side of things, and they got into the bee farming, not so much for what you're talking about, the dynamics and the inspiration that they help us understand. They did it from the economics and the ecosystem, because there's not enough bees and they're perishing as opposed to growing. That is what I understand. So they did it from that point of view. Hearing it from what you were talking about today is pretty fascinating. In the subject line, in the promo piece that we put here, the headline, whatever you want to call it, you said punch out procrastination. In terms of that and your business and your experience around leveraging VAs, what is that? How does that show up? How would you address that for us?
Well, first we kind of need to understand why we procrastinate, and there's different reasons. There's a lot of studies being done on this subject. A lot of times it's when we're faced with confusion in what to do, right? So sometimes that's where a coach like you can come in and help an entrepreneur get clear about the strategic direction of what they should do, what they should focus on. Another level, though, is at the task level, which is when things are difficult to do. So when tasks are put in front of us that we are not familiar with, we think it's going to be difficult, we tend to avoid doing them. And even for people like, who decide I want to write a book, right? It's a perfect example. I want to write a book, and then multiple years later or months later, they still haven't put pen to paper. Well, it's not difficult to start writing, right? But the project as a whole feels overwhelming to people. So they'll just kind of procrastinate and even say, okay, well, what are the first 12 chapters? Could you write down the first 12 chapter names? Well, I could probably do that. So being able to chunk down a big project into a little project. Now, we've talked about outsourcing specifically, primarily from what can we delegate? What are the tasks, projects, processes, activities that we can delegate to other people? But there's another way that I kind of teach entrepreneurs to use virtual assistant, which is, as a coach, you've worked with them at a strategic level. You've even maybe gone down to a plan. What's the plan of action? What's the tactical level? What we often find, though, is if people get as far as the strategic part, do they get as far as the planning part? Do they actually invest time monthly, weekly to work on the plan level? If they're working on the plan level, are they working at what tasks need to get done? Now, there's tasks we need to delegate, but there's also tasks that even every entrepreneur, even a CEO of $1 billion company has to do to keep driving the business forward. Well, I use virtual assistants to get those tasks into my calendar. And I call it appointment with yourself. Like when someone schedules time on your calendar, 99% chance you're going to show up, barring internet going down or something happening, the roadworks and whatever. But most of the time, when someone books time in your calendar, we tend to show up for other people. If we get as far as even scheduling tasks, most people don't. I mean, I've looked at thousands of calendars, and most entrepreneurs do not use their calendar, even the most simplest tool that we can talk about, do not get the tasks that they want to get done into the calendar, because that's a resistant point there. That little bit of effort that's required, that discipline, a lot of entrepreneurs don't seem to have. So the tasks that we need to do don't make it into the calendar, and often, other than maybe a weekly or monthly call, we are not held accountable to those tasks on a daily basis. Well, I started using a VA to say, well, can you? And I was one of those people. So I'm speaking from personal experience. That I got as far as task level. I could sit there and happily make a task, a list of things to do, but I couldn't get that next step in terms of putting the stuff in my calendar. Well, then I started asking my personal VA, hey, here's the 5-7 things I really have to get done this week. This is a morning task. This is an afternoon task. This task I'll do in the evening. And she started scheduling the tasks in my calendar. And then, just as would happen in a corporate in a software company where they do a daily stand up where they meet as a team, and they ask 3 different questions: what did you get done? What are you doing next 24 hours, and what help do you need? Well, I took that and said, well, what is it I want to be asked every single day? So, Beejel, what did you get done? What did you not? And as I'm answering, they're making sure that calendars are updated, task lists are updated, project management software is updated. They're doing that because that's the stuff they don't want to do. Next question, Beejel, what is it you didn't get done, and what's your reason? So now I've got to justify not doing something on my calendar. This is what I call the sting, right? So we've got the honey, which is the reward. Now we've got the sting of having to make excuses, and they note the excuses down. Now, they don't really care what the excuse is, but me having to explain the excuse of not showing up for an appointment with myself to work on a task that's part of my plan, part of my strategy, part of my 1-year goal, part of my 3-year goals means I'm stealing away that future possibility from myself today. And that's what I call the number one thing that all entrepreneurs could be delegating, or at least getting support with. It's not even delegating, really. This is what about is getting support from a virtual assistant who can simply help hold you. They can't hold you accountable. They can support the accountability process to ensure that you're getting the right things done, and then making updates to whether your list is on a Google Sheet, or whether it's on a Asana or a Basecamp or ClickUp or whatever software that we bought but don't tend to use effectively.
So that ties into my song. And I had this song, I collaborated with the artist to make this happen. And the title of I won't sing it, don't worry, boys and girls. I'm not going to sing it. It's an affirming declaration for me personally. However, I totally agree with what you said there. The calendar is one of the most misused, misunderstood, and abused because it's not used in the right way. And that appointment to other people, we put more merit in that than we do to ourselves. So it's like you're talking to me again. And the first line in my declaration is, I keep my word to myself, show up and make a difference. So the reason I put that in there, and the artist that created this, no, you don't need to do that. Yes, I do. I know me. And when I put something in the calendar, I get shit done. That's why that's in this particular lyric for me. It's not to use profanity in any way, but it's to remind me that shit is good stuff. And if I'm not doing those things, I'm fascinated by such a simple idea of having a VA to book your appointments. Now it switches the dynamic psychologically. Now it's in my calendar. It's an appointment. I'm going to treat it with the same importance as if I was having a meeting with you and we said we're going to meet. I'm going to show up just like you said, unless I get run over by a train where it blocks me and I can't do it. That would be the only time that I would have an excuse. The rest of the time I'd go over mountains and climb under things to get to you. So that's really a powerful sort of thing. Another nugget that I found that I learned from another Brit is the 17-minute sprint. So when I have things like I want to get done, if I put them into chunks of 17 minutes, I get them done. Or if I know I need more than 17, I'll double them up. And what's fascinating about that is I've made that appointment. I've plugged it in my calendar because that's the key to this. I get more shit done. And often what I surprise myself is what I was thinking about, the story I was telling myself was bigger than the actual project. And as a result of that, I get more stuff done. Wow, that's just a tiny little hack, but it's so important. I'm glad you brought that up. And it would really punch stuff out. That's a brilliant strategy. I love it. We have another note here. What does this say? I don't know who this is because they didn't put their name on. Let's put it up there. It says, thanks for re-encouraging us to reimagine how we can use our methodology to increase our productivity and use our calendars effectively. Sounds like a mental fitness exercise. Yeah, that was where I was going to go. So if you see up atop my head, I did change that from mindset to mental fitness. And the reason I do that is we have 10 saboteurs in here. One is the judge and 9 supporting cast. And if we can manage those voices and turn our sages on, so what's the opportunity? Much the same as what you did with your family. We can live life at a lower stress level, more opportunistic, more abundant, less of a victim and more of a victor. That was a really good note to put in there to remind me to talk about that. And I think you live this anyway. From the little bit I've experienced of you and seen the posts of you and your family and what you've done, you're pretty strong in the mental fitness side of things. That's my perception.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It's back in August of last year, I went for a kind of a blood test and found out I was diabetic. And said, look, you have a choice. You have a choice to make, which is get back, get your health back on track, or suffer the consequences. And I said, no. I said, I'm determined to turn this around and reverse type 2 diabetes. And one of the first things I did, Phil, is I took on a challenge called 75 Hard. If you haven't heard of it, just Google 75 Hard. But there's about 6-7 different things you have to do on a daily basis. Starting off with a particular type of diet. Doesn't matter what it is. You have to do 2 45-minute workouts a day. One of them has to be outside, a gallon of water, no alcohol, no cheat meals, and you take a photograph of yourself. So I kind of jumped into this. I didn't know much about it. I just heard a few friends talk about this. Now the first big challenge was my mindset, my mind talk was, I'm so busy I don't have time, right? Well, I've been teaching outsourcing for 10 years. So that's bullshit, calling out bullshit on myself, which is I need to change my dialogue, which is how do I fit my busyness around the most essential things in my life, right? Not I don't have time to fit these essential things in. I don't have time to fit my health into my calendar. But that was a dialogue, and it came from a much younger childhood. I didn't like working out, so I was kind of resisting that. So I had procrastination and resistance about working out. I just don't enjoy it. It's not my thing, but it's very important. Again, food. I know I love food. I love to eat. So I had to get these things in control. So I basically had to fit in these 2 45-minute workouts into an already busy day. Now I run 4 different businesses, including my own. I'm also a fractional COO for 3 other businesses where I do what I call operational counseling, coaching, and consulting for a few other businesses. So I had to make this all work. And so I had to make my health my first priority, had to get it scheduled in and make everything else fit around that. So that was the starting point of using my calendar, even for myself, even better. And then as I kind of got deeper into this, I realized that when we can get things into our calendar and start living by that commitment, everything else starts to fit itself around. Even when people start working with a VA for the first time, getting that little bit of time in on a daily basis for the first 30 days where you will connect with your virtual assistant and actually review the work they've done, give them the guidance. That little bit of upfront time commitment will pay itself back tenfold, if not 100-fold, over time.
And I'm still here, obviously. I'm going to bring myself back in. I put up your contact information. Here's LinkedIn, and I'm going to go to your website as well. I don't want to forget to do that because you have some.
When you disappeared, or you threw me for a second, I said, am I just alone in this universe now?
No, I was back there in the studio having some donuts, but they're low calorie, healthy donuts because it's all in your imagination. I absolutely have nothing in the green room at all. And actually, I'm glad because I'm on that same path as you, at a different place where I've been diagnosed as type 2 diabetic as well. So changing the diet is one thing, and getting physically active. I'm not sure I'm ready to commit to the world or even to myself to do 75 hard. I've heard of it, and
I think I mean, not to turn this, I'm not a health expert whatsoever, but it wasn't about that. It was about making that conscious decision of what do I need to do? What's the most
Right.
highest and best use of my time today? And at the time, it felt like, fitness and health was. Now, I've come to realize that you don't need to do two 45-minute workouts a day to optimize your fitness. But I mean, my result was I dropped about 35 pounds, Phil. I feel better than I've ever felt, mentally
look
sharper
great.
than I've ever felt. But it was a commitment to the calendar, right? Is what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's to make the appointments with ourselves because we're as important as anybody else, if not more so. It's like on the airplane, put your mask on first, is what they always talk about. And what you've reminded about, you probably heard about the wheel of life when you've got all these different spokes to get a balance, and more symmetrical it is great. That's a brilliant metaphor. However, there's a lot of stuff in there to think about and change. It's too arduous a process. So when I was introduced to the diamond map through the Brian Tracy's focal point methodology, there's only 4. And they're so much easier to deal with. And the bottom of it is health and fitness. I wonder why Brian picked that. Because without the health and fitness, the rest that I'm going to talk about don't matter. And the other ones are relationships, both professional and social and family. And then the other side is career, vocation, or business. And then the top one is money. But if you don't have the bottom, all the rest of them really you can't do as much with the rest of them. So to your point, work on yourself first. I want to brag on your website here because I don't want to sign up for I'll leave it up there for a minute. Here we go. I'm going to add this in right now. So here I could opt in. I think I'm going to do this and get on your mailing list. I think it'd be fantastic. I also am going to have an off-camera conversation with you about that idea about looking at what I would need to do to get going with taking the content from this to share it out with more people so we can have a bigger impact on people with less impact on my schedule. So I do want to have that conversation.
So let me quickly explain what this is. I basically created a very short, I mean, there's tons and tons of courses on outsourcing. I think we can spend a lot of time trying to learn it, but I want to give people just a very quick 25-minute exercise. The reason 25 minutes, again, right there is the Pomodoro clock, if you might recognize that from the Pomodoro technique.
Hang on, I'm going to make that bigger. I'm going to bring you on. Point at that
right,
again.
Right there. Let me just grab it off the shelf, right? So this is a kitchen timer, 25-minute kitchen timer. Well, it's a kitchen timer, but it's also in the shape of a tomato, and it's known as the Pomodoro technique, which is, and you said 17 minutes. The Pomodoro technique is based on 25 minutes of focused activity, but it's about 25-minute exercise that you can schedule in very easily. But essentially, it takes you through different ways to mind dump, brainstorm all the things you need to delegate to be the most effective entrepreneur, owner of your business. But it doesn't mean that we start by delegating everything, because that can create overwhelm. But it basically, from that exercise, you'll have a roadmap of what to delegate. And for a lot of people, they're going to, and I'll suggest delegating things that will either help with lead generation or help with lead conversion. And in addition to keeping yourself on track, so that's the number one thing, is helping you get the right things done. But number two thing is, do you need to generate more leads? Or if you've got that part of your business handled, what's the busy stuff that either you are doing or even some of your higher level employees, team members are doing, that we can delegate for about $5-6 per hour to somebody in the Philippines who can, dedicated to your business.
Excellent. So they can just sign here, go to your website, which is showing in the bottom of the window here, go up there and get 25 minutes of brilliance from you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you can download a form that you can as a kind of a little workbook to go through. But by the time you're done with that, you'll have a pretty good idea of what you want to get off your plate,
Cool.
or what you want to start getting off your plate.
And then there's the actual website page there. And there's a video of you there probably explaining something that we won't need to tell them about here because you got the video there, but it gives them more information. So anybody who's looking for a way to punch out and punch through procrastination in their life, you're a guy, a company that can help them. And if they can't find you, they can always look for us on the Business Renovator, and I'll point them in your direction. Hey, thank you for being here today. I appreciate your time, energy, knowledge, and humor. It's brilliant.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I'll be right back. So if you want to punch out things in your life, maybe you need to have a look at that 25-minute exercise that he was talking about. It's free. It's just a little bit of your time. And then if after that, You know how to get a hold of them. The information's right there. Wow, that was very informative. Went longer than normal, but man, this was jam-packed with nuggets, in my opinion. So what I want you to do is remember to go out and be wonderful, because the you in wonderful represents you, and you are uniquely wonderful. So go out and act like it. Have a wonderful, marvelous rest of the week.
I get shit done, I have fun. It's my time and I'm the one. I'm breaking